Okay, so we're going to return to our spreadsheet in which we're tracking expenses, and you've created your own. And I wanted to just show you a couple new things. And so we created in data validation. So if we look at data validation, we have our categories, and you'll have your own categories. And if we look at what we created under data, we have a named range. And so we call this range here, so A3 through A9, we called it categories. Okay, so there it is. There it is. Or A3 through A10. It's called categories with a capital C. Okay, and so what you can do is you can say equals, but it's strange, you put it inside the curly brackets. So inside curly brackets, categories. Okay, and then end with the curly brackets. When we enter, it inserts them in here. Okay, and so what you want to so rather than having to copy them, copy and paste, you can just refer to these, and it'll just copy what's in here. Okay, and so so you might say, well, why would you want to do that? Well, so let's look at what we've got here. And so we've got cars, right? And so let's see what happens if we change. So I've inserted categories here and here. Okay, so I said I didn't type cars, I just said categories. So let's go into cars and say, what if we change this to automobiles? Okay, so we change it to automobiles, and so here's where my practice ones were. But when we go to sheet 1, we see that it got changed here as well. So the only problem is, right, that the cars is left over, so it didn't update these. So you can think about what's happening there is you're selecting, but then it's just putting a text in. But it did change in the other areas as well. Okay, so cars is invalid. But it makes it a little bit easier that you can use that. Okay, so we're going to say whatever you put for your name. So I put categories, and we're just going to go in and do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wipe this out. Right? In fact, so I'm going to say, in fact, I'm going to wipe out this whole column. Okay, so I'm going to go and select, and you can see we're going to put our column in 3 times. Okay, so I'm going to wipe that out. So under Edit, I say Delete Values. Whoops, I didn't want to do that. Okay, so fortunately we have this reset, okay, and I've got that selected, and Edit, Delete Values. I deleted rows. I want to delete values. Okay, so I delete those values. So then I go up here and I say equals CATE. Okay, here's my categories, and I say end with that curly bracket as well. Okay, equals that. Okay, so then I go there and I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to copy that here and here and here. Okay, and so so let me just put some labels in here. So cost per category. So this is what we did before. So we had our sum if. We said, okay, if the type is automobile, then I'm going to add the cost. So we had our cost. What we're going to add now is, so we copied in our categories, and now for each of them we're going to use a countif. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to count in column C how many times each of these appeared. Okay, so let's build that. So let's get rid of these. So we're going to edit out, delete the values there. Okay, so I'm going to say equals countif, okay, C-O-U-N-T-I-F. Okay, so I'm going to countif, and I'm doing it in C:C. So I'm doing it in that row, and it just got highlighted. So countif, and then I'm going to say, well, what do I want to count? I want to count the category to the left. So that would be F13. Okay, so if automobiles is there, count it. Okay, and so we've got automobiles in there 3 times. So we're hoping that when we press, we'll get 3. Okay. And now you'll see that it has suggested that we fill the column with this. Now let's see what happens. Let's see if we do, well, so we're not going to do that, but that's, so you can see how gradually it's taking some of the skills out of this. Okay? So we can go over here and get that, that plus sign. We're going to pull down our formula. Okay, and you see we get this wonderful thing in travel work, right? So when we look at travel, we say, yeah, it's still looking in C, but now it's looking for what's in F14, travel. Okay, and food, okay, so we found that. Now what we want to do is average cost per item. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to say, we want to take, and this is a wonderful use of it, we're going to take the cost for the category and divide by the number of entries. So there's 3 entries for automobile. So we just wonder, well, how much is the average cost when you have something for automobiles? Well, it's about $630, right? Whereas travel, we didn't have much. Well, we only had 1 entry. Food, okay, we had 508, and we had it happen twice, okay? So we're going to do that. So we go down here, okay, and so there's probably, you know, a lot other ways to do this. But what we want to do is we're just going to get the average cost, and we're doing that by, we'll edit out those values. Okay, so we're going to just say what we want to do is we want to take what's in G3 and divide it by G13. Okay? So we'll just say equals G3 divided by G13. Okay, and it highlights for us the 2 columns with automobiles, and we enter that. Now the great thing about this, and you could, so let's go ahead and try it. Suggested autofill. So we're going to do Command Enter, or for you it would be Control Enter probably. Okay, and you see that it did that, right? So it kind of figures out what you want to do, and what you want to do is have that same formula. But you see how brilliant these spreadsheets are, right? It knows that your default is you want to do, if you did automobiles divided by automobiles, the next thing is you want to go down one and have travel divided by travel, food divided by food. And you can see the good thing about using that, using what we did with the categories, is that you can't introduce any errors, right? It's just going to keep repeating what you have, okay? And that's always your goal when you're using any sort of computer programming, is to try and not be typing in stuff. So try and use named ranges and things like that. So because when you put an error in, it's very hard to find. Okay, you might think, oh no, it's really obvious when you make an error. Well, it might be at the very time you're doing it, but when you come back to it the next day or the next month, then you're like, oh, I can't figure out what's wrong. Okay, so we've got that, and now what we want to do is let's try and make a chart. Okay, so we'll highlight this, but let's try and do a chart that's different. So what's going to happen is we'll say insert chart, and it will choose a chart. And I think that what you can do though is you can choose different things to do. So let's see, chart series. So this is strange. So it really just put in this chart, whereas I think last time we had one that, so you can see we have, as always, taxes. So I'm a little confused by this as well. So I have insert chart, and you'd think that you could specify the kind of chart you wanted. Okay, now I see it over on the right. So column chart, okay, and so we could say, oh, we want a pie chart. But let's say, okay, we'll go with the column chart. And those are some of the suggestions. Could we do a line chart, area chart? Let's do a line chart and see what it does. Okay. And then within that, what else can we do? The data range. Let's just play around with this. Use switch rows and headers. Well, that doesn't do much good, right? So we'll do a Control Z on that, Command Z on that one. Okay. Use row 3 as headers. Use column F as labels. So okay, that seemed to work best. So just take a look at that and look at the different kind of charts that you could use, and yeah, so you can see the variations on that. So you make a chart of your own choice when you do that.